Before the execution stand gazing at the gradually recovering sky. Everyone's ears seem to be still echoing Aizen's words before leaving. Goodbye, everyone Shinigami, goodbye, Natsuki, as a variable that should not have appeared, I look forward to the moment when I meet you again. The meaning of this sentence is, could it be that he still plans to make a comeback? Or, he has some hidden purpose for Soul Society. But for whatever purpose, next time I will never be as embarrassed as I am today. The old face of Yamamoto Motoyanagi Shigekuni looks extraordinarily firm at this time. And at this moment, a separate farewell to Aizen. Instead, Natsuki focused on the orange attribute light in front of him, his eyes filled with excitement. Hogyoku orange attribute light group different from the spherical shape I held in my hand before, this is an attribute light cluster. Which is, after absorption, don't worry about the risk of being snatched away. This is one. All Natsuki's own Hogyoku. Natsuki waved his hand directly. The orange color attribute light group will automatically integrate into his body. Ding. Host picks up a special item, Hogyoku, which will be worn in the inventory. After the sound fell, Natsuki's attribute list pops up automatically. Natsuki, sex, male, race, human. Inventory. Hogyoku, basic attributes, strength 50, speed 58, body 45, wisdom 45. Skills. Swordsmanship LV.7, 13/35, white hits LV.5, 5/25, absorption LV.5, 10/25, combat instinct LV.3, 4/15. Compared to before, familiarity list doesn't change much. It's just that the basic attributes and skill proficiency have improved a lot in these 2 days. But what caught Natsuki's eye, but the new inventory, and Hogyoku in the inventory. Subconsciously, Natsuki clicks on Hogyoku's message. Hogyoku effect. Respond to the desires around oneself, absorb and materialize. Conditions of use. You have enough strength to realize your wish. Effect introduction is very simple. It can even be said that, just like the attribute picking system of Natsuki, it is a bit too monotonous. But Natsuki, who knows Hogyoku's ability, he knows very well. Hogyoku is not as simple as it is described. Thinking of the leapfrog improvement after Aizen merged with Hogyoku. Natsuki felt that he had really gained a lot this time, not only solving Rukia's problem. It is even more mastery and understanding, and has the ability to use other people's Zanpakuto in one fell swoop. Of course, the most important thing is to analyze the frequency of Ryujin Jaka's spiritual son, and the Hogyoku he has now. This moment, he couldn't even wait to experience the power of Hogyoku. But from the corner of the eye, I glanced at the surrounding Shinigami. But helplessly, he forcibly dismissed this idea, and instead picked up the attribute light clusters that fell everywhere. Said to pick up, in fact, it's just a wave of hands. The fancy attribute light group will automatically fly to integrate into the body. But even so, Natsuki also experienced the joy of picking up the attribute system. I just heard the sounds of white hits +1, swordsmanship +1, strength +1, speed +1, intelligence +1, etc. picking up attributes in my mind. After a long time, Natsuki is finally picked up. The total attributes obtained this time are as follows. White hits +17 swordsmanship +31 strength +11 physical strength +14 speed +21 intelligence +15. At the same time, previously, the location of Tiantian Icicle Road. Natsuki also picked up a purple skill group Kido, the Shinigami core skill that he has been coveting for a long time. Kidwa like white hits. Because of the purple skill light group, the start is at LV.5 level. In Natsuki's mind, many ways to use Kido emerged immediately. But it is a pity that these are some low-level Kido, such as Black Coffin, 5 swirling dragons of destruction, which he has been coveting for a long time, did not appear. But no matter what, just updated a wave of properties panel. Once again welcome a wave of updates, many values have been improved. Clenched fist. Feel the power you have at this moment. Natsuki narrowed his eyes in joy, and raised a satisfied smile at the corner of his mouth. Thinking of the Soul Society battle being so fruitful, at this moment, he couldn't help but look forward to the scene of the Karakura town battle. Presumably by then, the dropped attributes will also be more abundant. Aizen's rebellion was too sudden, Seirei had no defense against this. In haste, not only failed to win Aizen and Ichimaru Jin, but even suffered heavy damage under the inducement of the other party. This makes the air pressure of Seirei much lower than this time of year. Certainly, none of this has anything to do with Natsuki. He'll be sitting in the reception room of the Kuchiki family. Still the same as a few days ago, sitting face to face with Kuchiki Yinling drinking tea, chatting and chatting. The content of the chat is very complicated. For example, the situation of Natsuki's family, and how to plan for the future. These questions were asked for several hours, although Natsuki was a little annoyed, but thinking of the identity of the other party, he had no choice but to answer. Only, think of the attitude a few days ago. Now look at what Kuchiki Yinling looks like. Natsuki couldn't help looking suspiciously at the little old man in front of him. Could it be that after Rukia was innocent, the Kuchiki family regretted it? But when he thought so, Kuchiki Yinling suddenly put down the teacup in her hand, and asked abruptly. By the way, I've always wanted to ask you, when are you and Rukia going to hold the wedding? Natsuki hasn't reacted yet. Hearing what Kuchiki Yinling said, he subconsciously replied. Wedding? We haven't discussed it yet, but at least finish school. Thought for a moment, Kuchiki Yinling nodded and approved. In that case, let's hold the wedding after you finish your studies. Right now, Natsuki just reacted. Huh. The wedding. It's settled. Next day Natsuki wakes up, it was found that it was already noon. When he walked out of the room and saw the completely different layout style from the real world, he realized that he was still a guest at Kuchiki's house. At this time, the waiting maid respectfully asked. Master Natsuki, do you need to wash up? Listening to that respectful voice, Natsuki is not used to it. When I visited the day before yesterday, with the help of the Shihuan family's worship post. Although I was also entertained by the attendance of the Kuchiki family, but there was no such enthusiasm and respect at all. But don't want to, since bringing back Rukia yesterday. The whole Kuchiki family's sense of him changed. The attendants are closer than each other, even Byakuya Kuchiki's attitude is much gentler. Even, just chatting with Kuchiki Yinling yesterday. He actually directly set the date of his marriage with Rukia. This is outrageous. Master Natsuki? Excuse me, do you need to wash up now? Seeing that Natsuki didn't reply, the maid asked again. Her voice was as respectful as before, without a trace of dissatisfaction. Well, I need to wash up, please help me lead the way. Natsuki came back to his senses, met the maid's gaze, and begged. The maid didn't say much. He turned around and took Natsuki with him, and walked towards the washroom. However, no one noticed. In the courtyard, Kuchiki Yinling quietly looked at the backs of the two leaving, nodded slightly with a satisfied expression. Although the engagement has already been made. But this does not prevent him from continuing to observe Natsuki. Even the maids treat each other like this. After Rukia gets married, it seems that she doesn't have to worry about being treated unfairly. After washing, Natsuki finally met Rukia dressed up. Dressed in a noble lady's body, paired with her outstanding appearance, he couldn't help being a little stunned. To be frank, during these months of getting along, Rukia is either wearing a variety of skirts or a school uniform. Although equally good looking, but suddenly put on a lady's dress. I have to say that it is very pleasing to the eye and has a strong sense of contrast. Fool. It's not like I haven't seen it. Feeling Natsuki's scrutinizing gaze, Rukia couldn't help but blush slightly, but still maintained her elegant temperament and indifferent eyes. It took her all morning, it was only from the etiquette teacher that I learned the skills to show my charm. Think of this, Rukia raised her head slightly. Showing off the perfect lines of the side face, it is bound to let Natsuki see his own charm. However, she completely forgot. Doing this in front of 185 centimeters Natsuki is like asking for praise. Natsuki also understood it accordingly. She is wearing new clothes today to seek comments. Thinking of this, Natsuki took Rukia into his arms as he did in the present world, leaned over and whispered in his ear. It's really good, Rukia. Itching in the ear. The already slightly red face quickly turned red. Natsuki. You let go of me first, this is still at home. Rukia couldn't resist and begged for mercy in a low voice. But unfortunately, Orihime and Longui came and happened to catch this scene in their eyes. Longui, Orihime. Although I knew that the two of us got together when we were in school. But seeing Soul Society, the two still get together like this is bullying single dogs. Yulong and the others found it. Longui reported first-hand information to Natsuki. Where are they? Do you need me to help? Ichigo, who came all the way, happened to hear the news, and hurriedly asked. That. Longui was a little hesitant. But thinking about the relationship between several people, he still said. I heard that a few people ran to the fourth team, and when they knocked out the players pretending to be the fourth team, they just ran into the captain of the fourth team. Sound falls, several people looked at each other. I didn't expect Sato's luck to be so bad. When I stunned the team members of the other team, I happened to meet the captain of the team. How unlucky it is. But, as the captain of the team, Natsuki feels that he still needs to go to the fourth team to find someone. Well, definitely not trying to take the opportunity to meet and see, that first-generation Kenpachi from thousands of years ago. Captain Interior, Unohana Retsu sitting on the tatami and arranging flowers. Whenever she is depressed or uncomfortable, she always arranges flowers to calm her mood. After all, thinking of what I saw yesterday, she couldn't help being slightly excited. Liberated, even though the child's strength is less than 5%, Unohana Retsu is still very excited. These years, she has been following Zaraki Kenpachi. Because he was too strong to find an opponent, he subconsciously sealed himself. The strength shown now is less than 30% of what it was 100 years ago, or even lower. But now it's different. A human boy who can defeat Kenpachi appeared. This made her see the possibility of Zaraki Kenpachi liberating his strength and returning to the top. Thinking like this, a voice came from outside the captain. Captain, Luhuo is here to pick you up. The flower arrangement paused slightly. But the next moment, Unohana Retsu returned to her original elegant appearance, and said with a light smile, then please bring them here, Yuin. Yes, Captain. Kotetsu Izan Kaido, soon. Kotetsu Izan returns to the captain's room, but this time, there were 5 more figures behind her. Natsuki, Rukia, Ryuki, Orihime, daycare. Captain, Rukia and several humans have arrived, please. Kotetsu Izan asks standing at the door. But the words are not finished, just interrupted by Unohana Retsu. Please bring them in, Yangyan. The voice fell. The 5 of them looked at each other, they didn't expect to be so direct. Although Natsuki knew Unohana Retsu from the plot, it was the first time meeting him in real life, so he couldn't help being curious about this first-generation Kenpachi. Then, when Kotetsu Izan pushed open the door of the captain's room, Natsuki walked in directly with Rukia, Longui, Orihime. B. The moment I met Unohana Retsu, Natsuki directly doubts life. Is this really the Wa sister he knows? The moment we meet, Unohana Retsu raised a smile, covered her mouth and chuckled softly. Ah, Mr. Lu Huo has 3 female companions by his side, isn't he very happy in life? Seirei in the 4th Division Station. A group of people followed Unohana Retsu towards the team building. Along the way, there are damaged buildings everywhere, and it is not an exaggeration to call it a ruin. It feels so miserable, this is really bad, it can only be pushed to rebuild. Squad 4 is almost in ruins, damn it, who is going too far? Therefore, after everyone saw it, one after another sighed with emotion, or fought against injustice. As for the last sentence, Natsuki said it with a shy face. At the same time, this may also be Unohana Retsu. The reason for making fun of Natsuki in the captain's room earlier. During the fight with Byakuya the night before, Natsuki understood it. Liuli responded to him by September 10th, and cut out a giant sword light. That sword glow. Many buildings were destroyed along the way. Unfortunately, the 4th Division happened to be among these destroyed buildings. My team house was destroyed like this, I guess everyone would be angry, Sister Wa just made a joke, it is already lenient. But it doesn't matter, now the most important thing is. Looking at Rukia who was clinging to him, Natsuki was full of helplessness. Rukia, you are so close, I can't even walk properly. Pity. Rukia stuck tighter instead, a look of, don't worry about me, I'm going to stick with you. After Long Gui and Orihime saw it, they would make giggle jokes from time to time. As girlfriends, of course they were eating melons online. Natsuki is helpless, he knew that Rukia was stimulated by Sister Wa. I couldn't say anything, so I had to let Rukia stick to me, and the group continued to follow Sister Wa to pick up Sato and the others. And at this moment, Rukia is not simply stimulated. As the early heroine of Shinigami, and a woman cultivated by the top nobles of the Kuchiki family. She is undoubtedly very clever. IQ, EQ, are far beyond the average level. Rukia instantly realized that with Natsuki's talent, it is impossible for her to be the only partner by her side in the future. After all, Soul Society is polygamous, and the Kuchiki family, as the exemplar of all Shinigami, is undoubtedly meant to uphold all the rules. Therefore, not only could she not refuse, on the contrary, also take the initiative to choose a partner for Natsuki. This is the duty of a woman of the Kuchiki family. Rukia, who grew up in the Soul Society and the Kuchiki family, is very aware of this and especially agrees. Now this performance, it's just her last bit of willfulness as a little girl. In ruins quite a few Shinigami clean up in it. Strive to clear out the ruins as soon as possible, and rebuild a new team building. At the same time, in the middle of a group of Squad 4 members. Suddenly, there were 3 figures that didn't match his temperament. One of them was tall, he is the main force in cleaning up the ruins, easily moving heavy construction waste materials, and then sending them to the designated location. There are many female Shinigami of the 4th Division. Seeing his serious appearance, he gave birth to a lot of good feelings. There is another person dressed in pure white, handsome and clear-headed. Although not as powerful as the previous one. However, he commanded a group of Shinigami with a clear division of labor, and completed the cleaning of ruins one after another in an orderly manner, which made everyone in the 4th division very convinced. As for the last person, although the power is not as big as the first person, the brain is not as fast as the second person. But he has the skill of turning spiritual structures into sand, and he uses Iwamami to deal with abandoned buildings around the scene, which is quite popular. And at this moment, when Unohana Retsu led Natsuki and his party. When I finally found Sato, Rain Dragon and Griffin, the three of them were in the ruins, having a hard time. Even, Sato and Uryu were also surrounded by female Shinigami. As for Griffin, his specialty, Yanbo, has helped him attract a group of fanboys, and he is at the pinnacle of his life at this time. Looking at the appearance of the three of them, Natsuki and his party fell silent. What happened to the agreement? In the end, the three of you came here to enjoy it? If I propose to take the three of them away now, will they be in a hurry with me? Looking at the expressions of Natsuki and his group, Unohana Retsu covered the corner of her mouth with one hand, with a cheerful smile on her face. Really, humans are not the same as Shinigami. Not just the idea of seeing things, even the personality is different from the Soul Society. Perhaps, the unchanging Soul Society needs some changes. And at this moment, a selection was also made by Natsuki et al. The three of them are here to help clean up the ruins of the 4th division. Natsuki, Ichigo, Orihime, Longui, and even Rukia can't just watch Sato and others work. Simply join the cleanup army together. Let's help the 4th team clean up the ruins together, and strive for Sato and his party to leave as soon as possible. Under the sunset, all members of the 4th division. Facing the backs of the departing group, he bowed and thanked. Thank you very much for your help. Welcome to the 4th team next time. Listen to the voice of thanks. Ichigo and others are exhausted physically and mentally, but at this moment, there was a layer of joy in helping others on everyone's faces. After looking at each other, they found that everyone was smiling happily. After all, no matter what, they are just 15 or 16-year-old teenagers. Compared with killing life, killing virtual, etc., this kind of gratitude for helping others makes me feel more joyful from the bottom of my heart. And at this moment, the old figure watching all this from a distance. As if moved by the innocence of these young people, he touched the broken arm with one hand, and with a determination in his heart, he said, Sasaki, it's time to go back. Wait for these brigade little heroes to rest for a night, we will come to visit tomorrow in person. Sound falls, the same figure with a severed arm suddenly appeared behind Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, knelt on one knee and said, Yes, I need it, Kenpachi, even if you want to fight. But can you make it clear so that people don't misunderstand? Looking at Zaraki Kenpachi, who was full of fighting spirit in front of him, Natsuki sighed helplessly. Fight and fight. Look at what tiger and wolf words are said here. It made Rukia look at him with a strange look on his face. Can he stand it? Who cares about that? I want to fight with you right now. Zaraki Kenpachi grinned, and directly drew out Zanpakuto to chop at Natsuki. Yachinryu jumped down. While eating the snacks in his hands, he cheered for the two of them. Come on, Ajien. Come on, little tree. She didn't forget that Natsuki gave herself a big bag of Koppei candies. Ding. Zanpakuto chops on Natsuki's shoulder. Just like when we met for the first time, I made the sound of iron clanging. This scene made Zaraki Kenpachi's pupils shrink. Unexpectedly, just one day passed, and he couldn't cut Natsuki again. But if you can't cut it with one knife, then cut it again. Boom boom boom. Only one after another afterimages emerged. The wild Zanpakuto, slashing towards Natsuki continuously. And at this moment, Rukia finally recovered. Looking at this scene, I subconsciously want to help. But she didn't want to. At this moment a big hand lightly pressed on her hair, comforting. Don't worry, it will be over soon. It will be over soon. What does this mean? Rukia was puzzled. But the next moment, she understood why Maki would say that. Boom. Fiery Ryotsu burst out. Natsuki, who was constantly attacked, finally responded. Zanpakuto drew his sword out of its sheath. The majestic Ryotsu condenses on the blade, at the moment Zaraki Kenpachi attacks. Cut. Poof. A knife wound that runs through half the body appeared on Zaraki Kenpachi, and suddenly, the injury, which was not good, became more serious now. Ha ha ha. That's right, that's it, keep going. Zaraki Kenpachi froze slightly, but he still launched a counterattack to Masaki madly. But don't want to. This time, a faster attack flashed by. Bang. Natsuki hit Zaraki Kenpachi in the jaw with a knee, the latter's eyes collapsed and he fell to the ground with a plop. Ryatsu of Zaraki Kenpachi just now. All condensed on Zanpakuto, no real tree will attack melee at all. So much so that in the face of this sudden knee blow, he was knocked down with one move, and the battle ended directly. Yachinryu is holding snacks with both hands. Staring blankly at Zaraki Kenpachi, who was hit by one move in front of him, he tilted his head to express his bewilderment. Why did Ajien lose in an instant? This is too fast, she hasn't even finished the snacks in her hand. At the same time, Natsuki slowly sheathed the knife. Looking at Yachiru who was in a daze, he walked to her side and comforted her. Rest assured. I controlled the intensity, Kenpachi will probably wake up after the festival. It's fine. Thank you, Xiaoshushu, for fighting Ajien. Yachinryu came back to his senses, shaking his head, he put the snack in his arms and walked straight to Zaraki Kenpachi. Then he clenched Zaraki Kenpachi's collar with his right hand. Carried it on his young body, then looked at Natsuki and Rukia with a smile, and asked expectantly. Ajien is asleep. Can I go to the festival with you? This. Of course. The two looked at each other and agreed without feeling that there was anything wrong. Sound falls. Yachinryu jumped up happily on the spot. Yahoo! I'm so happy to have someone visiting the festival together. But, she seems to have forgotten about Zaraki Kenpachi. I saw that every time Yachinryu jumped, the Zaraki Kenpachi in his hand flew into the air once, and then his head hit the ground heavily again. Natsuki, Rukia. This is Yachinryu. I want to invite her to join us in the upcoming festival. After arriving at the meeting point, Natsuki introduced Yachiryu to everyone. In fact, Ichigo, Orihime, Tatsuki, and even Kuchiki Jinring all know Yachiryu and Kenpachi. So, this so-called introduction, it can be regarded as a separate introduction to Sato, Raindragon and Ganju. Sato and Griffin may not be aware of it, however, Ishida Uryu has a delicate personality. From the expressions of Ichigo and others, it is known that several people have known each other before. Natsuki. You bastard. Obviously Shinigami, surprisingly not annoying. Ishida Uryu stretched out his index finger and pushed the glasses, thinking silently in his heart. And at this moment, servant of the Kuchiki family. Already found an excellent location to watch the fireworks. Everyone just needs to follow the attendants to this location, but an accident happened suddenly. Master Grandpa, are you going back? Before leaving, several people suddenly heard Rukia's surprised voice. Subconsciously, everyone looked at Kuchiki Yinling in puzzlement. I don't understand why he chose to go back at this time when the fireworks are about to start. For this, Kuchiki Yinling explained, I am also old, and I feel uncomfortable after being out for so long, so I went back to rest first. After all, he waved his hand to the rest of the people present. Then, accompanied by the attendants of the Kuchiki family, gradually disappeared into the crowd. But in one word, but through sound transmission, it was transmitted to Natsuki's ears. I don't get involved in your young people's activities at my age, remember to take care of Rukia. Heard the sound, Natsuki was taken aback for a moment, but then smiled suddenly. This old man, no matter how old he is clearly worried that he, an old antique, will not be able to let everyone go, so he left first. Really? The man of the Kuchiki family. All of them are honest in mouth and body. Hey, Natsuki, come here quickly, everyone is waiting for you. At this time, Rukia's voice sounds. Natsuki raised his head subconsciously, and cast his eyes on the worker. But he saw her standing on a wooden bridge in the distance, smiling and waving to him. Suddenly, on her back, a firework shot up into the sky. It was a colored firework, gorgeous and dazzling, dye the dark night sky colorful. At this moment, the colorful fireworks reflect Rukia's smile, but shine into the depths of Natsuki's soul. End of festival. The residents of Rukongai gradually dispersed. Natsuki and his group finally met the pyrotechnic master of the festival, Shiba Kongzuru. Maybe it's going out to work, or to respect the profession of a pyrotechnic master. At this time, Shiba Kong, compared with the appearance he saw 3 days ago, he was a little more reserved. Certainly, just be a little more reserved. Whenever someone passes by her, they can't help but stop for a moment. And at this moment, Shiba Kuzuru also saw Natsuki and his party. He walked over directly with Jin Yan and Yin Yan brothers and greeted. Yo. It looks like you guys are having fun. Sound falls. Shiba Griffin's expression changed. Nervously trotting over, he spoke righteously. Big sister, I'm planning to go home today, absolutely no idea of staying overnight. Due to strict house rules, plus the unique education method from my sister. Ganju was afraid that if he moved too slowly, he would eat his favorite Dabi Palace. Fortunately, maybe in a good mood, Shiba Kong ignored the griffin. Instead, they looked at Natsuki and his group. No, to be precise, it was Rukia. Hazy eyes, this moment seems to be recalling something. Kuchiki. Rukia, it's been decades since my eldest brother died. Sound falls, Rukia's expression blunted slightly. When going out in the afternoon, Natsuki told her the identity of Ganju, and the pyrotechnic master in this festival as Shiba Kongzuru. When they learned that the other party was Shiba Kaien's younger brother and sister, she had a momentary thought of escape, but looking at Natsuki who was by his side, he silently made up his mind. Decades have passed. I shouldn't, and I can't continue to escape. Rukia's gaze gradually became firm. Walking up to Shiba Kong step by step, he bowed abruptly and apologized. Sorry. I always wanted to apologize sooner. But because I was too timid, I dragged it until now. I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me for my mistakes back then. Listening to this apology, Shiba Kong finally felt relieved, and said plainly. Things developed at the beginning. I already knew what happened from Captain Jashiro. You did nothing wrong, on the contrary, I am very grateful to you. You have maintained the last dignity of the elder brother as a man. The sound fell instantly. Rukia is silent, did she do nothing wrong? Shiba Ganju also fell silent, and the conversation Jashiro Yukitake had with himself today appeared in his mind. If it was him, faced with the situation that Captain Jashiro said. As a man, a husband, he should make the same choice, even if the price is his own life. And at this moment, facing the chilled atmosphere, Natsuki changed the subject and asked Shiba Kuzuru. Shiba Kuzuru. So troublesome. I'll just call you Sister Kong I'll ask. Where did Yoruichi go? She hasn't been seen since yesterday, it's a bit worrying. Overheard asking about Yoruichi. Shiba Kuzuru didn't care what Natsuki called him. Instead, she scratched her hair. In fact, she didn't know much about her elusive girlfriend, so she guessed. Yoruichi. I think I should be accompanying Yushiro. After all, the siblings haven't seen each other for 100 years, so they should have a lot to talk about. But don't want to, the moment her voice fell. A voice full of the charm of a mature woman suddenly sounded behind everyone. That's right. I took the opportunity to go home yesterday. I never thought that I was met by that kid Shishiro, and I wasted a lot of time. Heard the sound, several people subconsciously turned around and looked. I saw that Yoruichi, who was wearing the iconic yellow clothes, appeared behind everyone at some point. Hey everyone, I haven't seen you for a day, miss me? Natsuki, Ichigo, Orihime, and Longui are alright. The four of them at least saw what it looked like overnight. But Rukia, Sato, and Yulong did not. Looking at this woman with wheat-colored skin and a heroic figure, the three of them were at a loss as to who it was. But in the bewilderment of the three of them, Yoruichi glanced at the crowd and brought a piece of news to everyone. I just met Jashiro. He told me that preparations for the World Transit Gate have already started. About tomorrow afternoon, you will be able to return to the present world through the World Transmitting Gate. This news is too sudden. Suddenly, everyone looked at Yoruichi in bewilderment. I never imagined that it was only the 4th day of the Soul Society, and I would return to the present world again, which is too fast. Only Natsuki. But with a thoughtful look on his face. In the plot, the protagonist group is also sent back to the present world within a few days. But thinking about it is also true, no matter how I say it, my group of people have entered the Soul Society illegally. Seirei did not pursue, it was already for the sake of everyone's help yesterday. If you continue to let everyone stay in the Soul Society, it is not in compliance with the rules. Pity. Because of this sudden news, everyone lost the mood to continue shopping, and ended the festival tour happily. However, Shiba Kong waved his hand. Are you going back tomorrow? In that case, let's hold a banquet today. After the voice fell, immediately arrange for Jinshang and Yinyu to go home and prepare for the banquet. For the unhappy people, immediately came a shot in the arm, and a smile appeared on his face more or less. Banquet. Sounds like a lot of fun. I've never attended a banquet before, so I'm looking forward to it. HMPH, since my sister decided to hold a banquet, then I will contribute the fine wine that I have treasured for many years, thank me. Even Natsuki, there was a look of anticipation on his face. This banquet everyone is free to eat, drink and have fun. Even the two servants Jin Yan and Yin Yan were dragged to the banquet. The banquet lasted until late at night, and it was not over until everyone collapsed from alcohol. But if you drink too much alcohol, it is easy to make mistakes. Maybe it's the thought of saying goodbye to Rukia for a while. Natsuki didn't restrain himself today, instead he started messing around with everyone, pouring alcohol on people around him crazily. But he forgot, although the alcohol content is not high, the stamina is not bad. When he won a group of people by drinking, he fell to the ground too much to drink. Fortunately, the wine was good and he didn't act like crazy. Only, maybe it was a mistake, or it was intentional. After this banquet is over, Shiba Kuzuru accidentally puts Natsuki and Rukia. Throw them into the same room together, and then, doctor with a satisfied smile. For decades ago, Rukia maintains the dignity of the big brother something. Shiba Kuzuru has always kept it in his heart. At first, she was really angry and wanted to kill Rukia for revenge. But with the growth of age and the improvement of experience, Shiba Kong realized that if Rukia had intervened in the big brother's battle, my eldest brother may be able to survive, but is the eldest brother who survived really the big brother, who was confident and radiant before? Think of this, the anger in her heart gradually dissipated. Even, grateful for Rukia's actions at that time. Thanks to her at the last moment for helping the elder brother to keep his dignity as a man. As thanks, Shiba Empty Crane does not mind. Help the little couple break through the last level. I have to worry about the two brats at night, I'm really drunk. Under the night the scent of heather blooms. At this moment, Rukia felt full and blessed like never before. And at this moment first team, captain meeting room. Yamamoto Motoyanagi Shigekuni stood with a cane in one hand. Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki stood on his left and right sides respectively, discussing how to deal with Natsuki and his party. Suddenly, Kyoraku Shunsui lowers the brim. Turning his eyes to Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni in front of him, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Yay, Shan Yi, this plan is too stingy. Just give a useless Shinigami proxy card, be careful Natsuki won't be happy to kill you. Let me see. How about putting Rukia next to him? The young couple don't need to disperse, isn't that really good? The voice fell, Jashiro Yukitaki speaks his mind too. Cough cough cough. I think the Shinigami agent certificate is still very important. While enhancing Natsuki's sense of belonging to Seirei, it also gives him an official identity. And at this moment, listen to the opinions of the two disciples. Yamamoto Motoyanagi Shigekuni squinted his eyes unconsciously, and felt that both of them were right, so he ordered. In that case, this matter is entrusted to you. But after the voice fell, he seemed to remember something, and said in a deep voice. This time the Shinigami agent certificate is issued, normally, so the boring process will be avoided. Normal 2 words. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni said slightly. Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki were taken aback for a moment, they didn't expect that this time the master captain would be so relieved that Natsuki is alone. But this is the request of my own teacher. Naturally, the two of them would not violate it, and simply said. Yes, I understand, Mr. Shanjia, Captain. Next day. Looking at the rosy Rukia. The boys headed by Ichigo didn't think much about it, but the girls Ryuki, Orihime, Sorozoru, and Yoruichi saw through everything. Natsuki, Rukia. Longwei and Orihime looked at them with flushed faces. I never expected that after getting my group drunk yesterday, these two people would not do anything good. Natsuki boy, you are fast. Yoruichi leaned over to Natsuki, smirked and poked him in the waist. Leave today. You just finished the work in the middle of the night, not bad. It seems that the Kuchiki family will add a new member soon. Don't make trouble, but you are still watching from the sidelines. Feeling Yoruichi's movement, Natsuki grabs her hand. After hearing Yoruichi then gave up flirting with Natsuki. Turning to look in Rukia's direction, seeing that the other party has got rid of the girl's innocence, she subconsciously asked. You are so brave. Rukia now, aren't you afraid I'll tell Byakuya? This operation directly confused Natsuki. Subconsciously drew his hand, and asked Yoruichi Joe in a low voice. What are you talking about, we know each other. Yoruichi raised a provocative smile at the corner of his mouth. Little man, so what if we know each other? If we say we know each other, Byakuya knew me hundreds of years before you. Then he turned and left, but as if inadvertently, the moment he turned around, his fingertips caught Natsuki's arm. This action, Natsuki couldn't help muttering. This damn little black cat. In terms of knowing each other, it is true that Byakuya met first, but you, a girl, ask someone to talk about this kind of thing, are you embarrassed? But this man is Shihuan Yoruichi, who knows what she thinks? If you really get interested, it is not impossible to turn around and run to Byakuya to complain. The other side Yoruichi is licking her lips. A wild smile appeared on his face at this moment. Little black cat. Little devil, that's how you miss your sister. To know. Cats are very curious. Especially for cats who are woken up in the middle of the night, their curiosity is several times higher than during the day. By myself, the hidden power of the former commander-in-chief of covert maneuvers. He leaned against the corner and eavesdropped until dawn before leaving. But Yoruichi was a little curious. How did Rukia bear such a small size? You know, Rukia is only 144 centimeters tall, but Natsuki's height is 185 centimeters. The difference between the two is 41 centimeters. The gap is so big, it is impossible to imagine how the two get along. At the same time, Rukia suddenly sneezed. It feels like someone is talking about yourself, but then forget about it the next moment. At this time, she asked Jin Yan for a pair of scissors. Sneaking back into the room, blushing, cut off a piece of blood-stained white cloth, and carefully put it in his arms. After breakfast, Natsuki and his party bid farewell to the Shiba siblings. Then I took the pass from Kuchiki's house and entered Seirei from Sidenfang. Natsuki. Inoue Orihime, but an old voice. But it sounded at the moment when several people entered Seirei. Subconsciously, a group of people looked over. Seeing this, he couldn't help being a little dazed, and saw Gotei 13th Division, Captain Yamamoto Motonyanagi Shigekuni standing in the distance. For missing an arm. At this time, he can only lean on a cane with one hand, which looks a little embarrassing. The strongest Shinigami of the millennium. Now, has it fallen to the point where someone cut off his arm? Master Yamamoto. How long have you been waiting here? I think it won't be a morning. Watching Yamamoto Moto Yanasai Shigekuni, Natsuki was taken aback for a moment, then realized something and asked curiously. No problem. Since asking for help, the old man should take the initiative to come to the door. Yamamoto Genryuzai's voice changed slightly, paused for a moment, and then returned to normal. This change is not obvious. Natsuki was standing right in front of him, barely able to hear it. But it is heard. Natsuki's eyes flickered slightly, and he asked for help, and he also mentioned Sister Ori. It made him subconsciously look at the broken arm. Unlike Chojiro Sasaki, who only had half of his arm severed, Yamamoto Motoyanagi Shigekuni had his entire arm severed at the root. Its injuries, basically the same state as the Millennium Blood War chapter. But this time his choice was completely different from the plot, and he did not give up treatment because of the guilt in his heart. Has my presence changed? Interesting, since he is willing to receive treatment, the Millennium Bloody Battle chapter is probably not so easy to be solved by Yuhabak. Staring at the severed arm of old man Yamamoto, Natsuki thought silently. As for knowing her abilities, probably because he had rescued Byakuya who was dying. Next moment, his eyes turned to Orihime, who was bewildered. Orihime, the severed arm of Mr. Yamamoto, can you restore your current strength? I'll try. Orihime is still secretly looking at the appearance of Yamamoto Motorisai Shigekuni, but she has not forgotten the vigorous appearance of this old man the day before yesterday. But don't want to, interrupted by Natsuki while peeking. He was stunned for a moment, and then he replied readily. Sakura Shun, Iris, Shuangtian Guiden, I refuse. Orihime walked up to Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni and used his ability. The moment the sound fell, hairpins on the hair, incarnation of two elves. One up, one down, appeared at the broken arm of Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, and then the orange-yellow spirit appeared, and the link became a barrier. This scene, Yamamoto Motoyanagi Shigekuni raised his eyes slightly. I saw that the severed arm that was cut off by Chi General appeared out of thin air little by little. After a few meters, the two fairies Shun Sakura and Xiaochang flew back to issue cards again. And Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni's original broken arm has been completely restored to its original state at this time. This is exactly the same, no difference. Feel the arm that is no different from the original. At this moment, even Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni couldn't help but breathe heavily, his pupils trembling. Orihime. Destiny. This may be the fate of Seirei. While traitors like Aizen appear in Seirei, sending geniuses like Natsuki, Orihime, and Kurosaki Ichigo again, this is definitely a gift of fate. See you next time, everyone. Brother Byakuya, don't worry, I won't forget to practice even after I go to this world. In front of the crossing gate, Natsuki and Rukia bid farewell to the people who were seeing them off. Sado, Orihime, Long Gui, and Yulong stood behind and waited silently because they were not familiar with the captains. At the same time, Jashiro Yukitaki pulled Ichigo. Handed over the Shinigami proxy card prepared in advance. This is a Shinigami proxy card. With this, you can become a Shinigami at any time. For Natsuki's sake, unlike the original plot, there is no monitoring function in this proxy card. It's just a Shinigami proxy card with normal functions. Of course, the same Shinigami proxy card, handed over by Yamamoto Motonyanagi Shigekuni, was also handed over to Natsuki himself. But this is for the four olds, for Natsuki who can directly enter Shinigami mode. The function of the Shinigami proxy card is useless, it is just symbolic. And at this moment, Natsuki and Rukia say goodbye to Byakuya Kuchiki. The world-penetrating gate behind everyone suddenly emitted a dazzling light, and bursts of spirits intertwined continuously. It looks just like the power grid in this world. It's time, Jashiro Yukitake reminded after seeing this scene. In this case, let's wait until the next time we meet, I believe, it won't be too far away. Natsuki glanced across the crowd. With a smile on the corner of his mouth, he finally bid farewell to everyone. Next moment, accompanied by a flash of light, the figures of Natsuki and his party completely disappeared from everyone's eyes. Rukia. Byakuya Kuchiki's eyes were rare and gentle. Perhaps he is also reluctant to let Rukia go to the present world? Yamamoto Genryu's gaze was particularly deep, as if he was thinking about something, before he spoke for a while. Sasaki. Yes, Your Excellency Renzize. Chojiro Sasaki stepped aside. At this moment, his severed arm has recovered. Apparently, before Natsuki and his party left, Orihime helped him restore his severed arm. Go and inform the captain of the squad that was not present. 1 hour later, the captain's meeting will be held, and all members must be present. Yes, Your Excellency Renzize. Chojiro Sasaki stepped aside as ordered. Hand over the order to the support team and send it to each team. Yamamoto Motoyanagi Shigekuni took one last look at the world transmitting gate leading to the present world, and then turned and left without hesitation. Thinking about the content of this meeting in my heart. Because of Aizen's betrayal, the power of Jinglingting was reduced. In order to avoid accidents due to power reduction, such as enemy invasion or rebellion. Next, Seirei is afraid that martial law will be needed for a while. But vigilance is vigilance. It does not need to affect the daily operation of Seirei. In this rebellion incident, although the three captains Aizen, Ichimaru Jin, and Tusen Kanami were missing. But except for these three people, Seirei has 10 captains of the same level. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni is confident, and he is sure that nothing will happen to Seirei. Present world a door appeared in the sky. Just like when entering the Soul Society, several figures fell out of it. What? Why is it the same as last time? Help. Think of a way to save your life. By the way, Orihime, use the trick that invaded Seirei when it fell. Look at the high-altitude environment in which you are. Almost subconsciously, everyone screamed crazily. As if thinking of something, Kurosaki Ichigo quickly shouted to Inoue Orihime who was screaming beside him. But don't want to, because of falling from a high altitude. His voice did not reach Inoue Orihime's ears at all. Have no choice, he could only watch helplessly as he fell to the ground. However, when everyone was only a few meters away from the ground, Natsuki's voice suddenly sounded. 37 hanging stars of Bakudo, sound falls. Spiritual power quickly takes shape in the air. A spiritual subnet appeared to enclose everyone in it, and it slowly disappeared after everyone fell to the ground. What is this? Wow, that's cool, I want to learn this trick too. Wait, I seem to have seen Rukia use a similar trick, what the hell is it called? Looking at the hanging net in midair, Ichigo, Orihime, and Longui have different performances. Natsuki. You know how to use hanging stars. Rukia looked at Natsuki blankly, after all, she was the one who knew Natsuki the most in this group. Lived together for 3 months. Rukia naturally taught Natsuki Kido. But Natsuki's preference is obviously biased towards chopping, and he only learned the simplest Hado and Bakudo from Rukia. So, when she saw Natsuki use hanging star, immediately, I felt an incredible feeling. I learned it by the way in Soul Society, don't worry too much. Natsuki didn't elaborate, but looked into the distance. Seeing Rukia, his eyes followed suit. I saw the figure of Urahara Kazuki appearing from a distance, and beside him were several of his shop assistants. Urahara Kazuki. Seeing the approaching figure, Rukia said in a low voice. After Aizen's betrayal, she also learned from Aizen what Urahara Kazuki did to her. Without knowing it, mess with your own righteousness, this matter has to be settled. Far away, this feeling is. Urahara Kazuki, who came in a hurry, was taken aback. Do not know why, he had a bad premonition in his heart. But when he saw Rukia next to Natsuki, immediately understood everything on, sighed lightly, and thought about how to compensate. But don't wait for him to figure out how to compensate. Ichigo and others also discovered Urahara Kazuki and his party. Ah, it's boss Urahara. Speaking of which, this guy seems to have tricked us. Knowing that Aizen has a problem, but not telling us, I'm a little upset. Sound falls. The eyes of everyone looking at Urahara Kazuki have changed. This made Yurihara Kazuki, who was already guilty, tremble even more, and shouted in his heart that it was over. Yurihara. Boss, can you explain? Why is Hogyoku appearing in my body, and why I haven't recovered from a serious injury for 3 months? Rukia stands beside Natsuki. Looking at Yurihara Kazuki, who was walking towards the crowd, he questioned in a low voice. Previously, she has not recovered from her serious injury for 3 months. I just simply thought that the concentration of spirit particles in this world is too low, and the recovery from injuries caused by this is slow. But don't want to. Aizen broke the truth in Soul Society. The skeleton she wears will continuously decompose the power of Shinigami. The spiritual power will never recover, until it is completely gone. She will lose the power of Shinigami and become an ordinary human. Listening to a voice of questioning. At this moment, Yurihara Kazuki fell silent. He did the thing, he won't deny it, and he was even ready to reveal it. But when I really faced this moment, he didn't know what to say. In the end, he honestly came to Rukia, bowed and apologized. Sorry, I was wrong about this. Sound falls. All eyes are on Rukia. Yurihara Kazuki. Rukia's eyes flickered. She is not ungrateful, although Yurihara Kazuki is not authentic this time. But the previous help to her was solid and not mixed with any moisture. This made her very embarrassed and angry at this time, because Yurihara Kazuki was not authentic, but he did help her. Suddenly, just when Rukia was in a dilemma. But she felt someone holding her right hand, looked up, Natsuki smiled softly at her. Don't worry, Hakiri has me. The moment the sound falls. Rukia's pupils suddenly contracted. Others don't know, but how could she not know? This moment, her memory went back to 3 months ago. That was the night I met Natsuki for the first time. Same, also under the moonlight. He said the phrase to himself, don't worry, Rike has me. It seems that I also started to have an unusual interest in Natsuki, a human being, at that moment. Quite a while, Rukia looked up again. Just like 3 months ago, the corners of his mouth raised. Then I'll leave it to you, Natsuki. Natsuki also responded as he did 3 months ago. Don't worry, leave everything to me. Under the moonlight, the two shadows were infinitely elongated. But the difference is that this time the shadows of the two have intertwined. This scene, it made Orihime and Longgui's faces turn red. I don't know if it's envy or shyness because of the straightforward words of the two of them. At the same time, Yoruichi in the form of a black cat. Seeing the two getting so close, as if thinking of something, the corner raised a smirk. A moment later, Natsuki looked at Yurihara Kazuki. This gaze made Yurihara Kazuki startled slightly, and always felt that the next development would be a bit bad. Really, Natsuki's first words made his body tremble. Boss Yurihara. I remember that in your store, there seem to be many interesting products. Since you can't sell it, why don't you take some out and let us open our eyes? Yurihara Kazuki's face froze. He didn't expect Natsuki to be eyeing his own products. To know, among the commodities he sells. However, there are many prohibited items. If one is used carelessly, it will cause serious harm. This made Yurihara Kazuki subconsciously refuse. If you don't believe me, those products are too dangerous to take. But the words are not finished, it was interrupted by Natsuki. Don't worry. Too dangerous forbidden items are not safe to hold. You only need to order some ordinary ones, and let us play together. Talking room, his eyes are fixed on Yurihara Kazuki. He is not a stupid student who doesn't understand anything. Like the original book, you don't need anything, just an apology. How is that possible? Seeing the benefits without looking, you want me to forgive you so simply, think too much. And, it's saying, how many of us obviously not only Rukia is compensated. When Natsuki said this, he directly counted Ichigo, Orihime, Longui, Sato, and Uryu as the kings of the category of compensation objects. Natsuki said it all. If Yurihara Kazuki is shirking, it's obvious that he can't justify it. Have no choice, he could only nod his head in agreement. I understand. Please follow me, I have just arrived at a batch of ordinary goods in my store. After all, silently turned around, a bleak back walked towards his shop. Seeing this, Tessai Tsukabishi and Xiao Yu hurriedly followed. Only Jinda looked at Natsuki with a look of disbelief. It was hard for him to imagine that someone could take advantage of the Iron Rooster manager's hand. This is a real man. At the same time, do we have a share too? Wow. That's great, there's a new toy. Are there any products in the Yurihara store? Interesting, I'm quite interested. I don't know if there is a suitable weapon for me. I always fight with bare hands, it feels a little dangerous. Ichigo and the others also looked at Natsuki in surprise. They told the truth, even though they knew that Yurihara Kazuki was calculating themselves, they were still a little angry. But what about compensation? Ichigo and the others didn't think of this aspect at all. I even thought in my mind that as long as Urahara Kazuki apologizes, everything in the past will be erased. Should I say it or not? Urahara Kazuki is worthy of Doraemon in Shinigami. Don't look at his shop as small and not a big shop, but there is actually a universe inside. After entering the Urahara store, everyone was led to the underground warehouse of the Urahara store. Pause time. Everyone was shocked. A warehouse bigger than the school playground unexpectedly appeared in front of my eyes, and most importantly, it was full of all kinds of commodities. Well, here are all the products in the store. As an apology for not telling the truth to you, everyone can choose any product to bring a baby. Urahara Kazuki stood in front of the crowd. Swish open the small folding fan, smile and look at everyone again. Maybe he was thinking about it, or maybe he was forcing a smile, but now he doesn't have the embarrassed expression before. Choose whatever. If you say that, we will not be polite. Natsuki caught the loophole in Urahara Kazuki's words and let out a smirk. Urahara Kazuki. Certainly, it's just a joke. As I said earlier, only pick products that are not dangerous. Naturally, he would not change his mind temporarily, and the current provocation was completely venting his dissatisfaction. With the wisdom of Urahara Kazuki, naturally, he could also hear the dissatisfaction contained in it, but the thing is that he did something wrong, so he can only accept it silently. Immediately, everyone went away. Directly in the warehouse, choose your favorite products. But because the warehouse is too large, the goods stored in it are too complicated. An hour passed before everyone reunited. Natsuki picked out a spirit spray, which can enhance the user's spirit control ability after spraying it. Rukia chose a Chabi model Yihunwen. Ichigo chose an amulet for each of the two sisters, which would emit a nasty smell to protect the safety of the younger sister. Long Gui chose 2 pairs of strong wristbands to strengthen the strength of limbs. Orihime is different. After eating at the Urahara store before, she is interested in the rice cooker here. Upon inquiry, I found out that it is a rice cooker that can condense spiritual power and make rice more fragrant and sweet. Taking advantage of this opportunity, I chose a rice cooker of the same model that can condense spiritual power. Sado, Rain Dragon 2 people, the selection is relatively quick, and it takes only 10 minutes to jump to the favorite item. The former chose a pair of spiritual dumbbells, which can adjust the weight of the dumbbells by injecting spiritual power, which is a good training tool for him. The latter chose the jeweling bracelet, wear it on your hand to gather spirits around you. For a Quincy master like him, it is a good auxiliary tool. Certainly, goods picked by everyone, any valuables are small items that arrive every day. After all, this is just Urahara Kazuki's compensation, and everyone is not so blind, just pick the one that suits you. Store entrance Urahara Kazuki watched Natsuki and his party leave. At this time, his face was full of interest instead of the embarrassment at the beginning. Interesting. I thought I could fool around casually. Unexpectedly, Brother Natsuki took the opportunity to propose compensation, and the degree was just right. Sound falls. Yoruichi in black cat form also stepped out. Looking at Natsuki's disappearing back, the admiration in her eyes is almost overflowing. Although I am asking you for compensation, but the selected products happen to be within your tolerance. This allows me to get compensation, but at the same time, I haven't turned against you. This method, even more mature than most adults. Sure enough, Natsuki is even better than we imagined. Next, it's time to change our view of him. Under the night, Natsuki led Rukia towards the apartment. No idea at all, Urahara Kazuki and Yoruichi are discussing themselves here. Suddenly, he stopped, as if thinking of something, he looked at Rukia and asked. Rukia. I made my own decision to ask for compensation, will you be angry? Angry. Rukia tilted her head in confusion. Looking at Natsuki, he thought for a long time, but couldn't figure out why he was angry. Is it possible, is he the one calling for compensation? But. Promise to leave this matter to Natsuki. Logically speaking, from that moment on, no matter what choice Natsuki makes, she has no right to deal with it. Did not expect. Natsuki is still after the fact. I was worried that I would not be able to accept this matter, so I made a special inquiry. Thinking of this, Rukia was not angry, but a look of joy appeared on his face, and he squeezed Natsuki's hand tightly. I'm not angry, I'm even happy. You care about me so much, I'm too late to be happy, how could you be angry? Perhaps a further breakthrough in the relationship. The relationship between the two is obviously more natural, and the warm words that I was embarrassed to say before, are unconsciously uttered from my mouth. The voice fell. Natsuki couldn't help but smile as well. That's good, you were being calculated by someone like this, but the other party just wants to fool you with an apology. It's definitely not that easy. And at this moment, listening to Natsuki being unabashedly concerned for himself. Rukia shyly turned her head to look at him, but she refused to let go of the right hands that were held together. Last few days of summer vacation rejected the invitation to play by Ichigo and others. Natsuki and Rukia are enjoying the world of two together at home. One is relationship breakthrough. The two are now in the stage of eating marrow and knowing the taste, and they are tired of being together all day long and don't want to be separated. The second is about Kido practice. Natsuki's swordsmanship has reached a bottleneck recently. It is temporarily impossible to get an explosive improvement just by picking up attributes. He simply learned Kido from Rukia. This is not a waste of the Kido attribute light balls dropped by Aizen. As for the third point, it is related to the development of the two Zanpakuto. Yuri has mastered Hyarinmaru's spiritual frequency, so Natsuki can use Hyarinmaru's ability. Exactly, Rukia's Zanpakuto Soda no Shirayuki. It also belongs to the ice and snow system, and the abilities of the two are relatively similar. Natsuki tried to study the characteristics of the two Zanpakuto, such as his own seclusion. But don't want to, after several attempts without success. On the contrary, he accidentally developed several new ice and snow skills. And at this moment, Karakura town back mountain forest. Rukia jumped into the air, waved Soda no Shirayuki in his hand, and said coldly. Whispering dance white crystal, sound falls. Soda no Shirayuki spills a little spiritual power. In an instant, spiritual power and water vapor combined. The cold air condensed and turned into thousands of ice crystals, accelerating towards the ground. At the same time, watching the incoming ice crystals, Natsuki's eyes suddenly lit up, and he praised. Yes, the attack range is wider than the icicles of birds, and the number of ice crystals is relatively more. The voice fell. The ice crystals in the sky have struck. Feeling the piercing icy breath, Natsuki raised his right hand holding the knife. Ice shield. A large number of spiritual seeds surged, and an ice shield blocked in front of him. Boom! Ice crystals pierced the trees. Sawdust splattered, gravel flew, and dust filled the air. The entire forest seemed to be in a catastrophe. The huge roar continued to sound, and the ground was riddled with holes. But it is also mixed with the crisp sound like the clanging of iron tools. Ding! 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 I saw the countless ice crystals hitting the ice shield. The densely packed ice shield, which is strong enough to withstand captain-level attacks, was easily broken through the surface defense. In a second, thousands of ice crystals are shot. But at this moment, the entire forest seemed to have entered an ice age, completely turning into white, and everything was covered with a layer of ice. Awesome! Watch the effect. Rukia, who was in midair, couldn't help but praise. Although after several days of experiments, she already knew that this move was very powerful, but after using it herself, it was a different feeling. CG Wu white crystal with the help of the spiritual power overflowing when swinging the knife. Condensed countless ice crystals, covering the area with firepower at the ultimate speed. And because of the freezing properties of Soda no Shirayuki, while the ice crystal pierces the enemy, it will also produce a freezing effect. To sum it up, this is a large area control damage skill. And at this moment, Rukia fell from the sky. However, due to excessive physical exertion, he staggered and almost fell to the ground. Seeing this, Natsuki walked to his side. He helped Rukia, who almost fell to the ground, to the side to rest. And open the backpack. Take out the thermos cup with some salt added. Thanks, Natsuki. After taking a sip from the thermos, Rukia thanked her. In the past few days, in order to help Rukia master new abilities as soon as possible, Natsuki controls Ryotsu to the same level as Rukia for actual combat. Although every battle, it all ends with Rukia running out of energy. But she has an attitude of never getting tired of it. After all, if she can become stronger, is she willing to continue to be weak? Even, as training begins, her grip on Soda no Shirayuki is getting stronger. And Ryotsu, which has stopped growing rapidly, has re-entered a period of high-speed growth and has rapidly improved. Although it's kind of weird, but she has feelings. Keep it up like this. 1 month, no, half a month, you can break through by yourself, and become a real captain-level combat force in one fell swoop. I drank the hot water in the thermos. Rukia took a long breath, feeling a little recovery of physical strength, ready to continue training new abilities. However, Natsuki looked up at this moment. Immediately, Rukia also noticed something. The two looked towards Karakura town at the same time, their brows furrowed tightly. This is Sado's Ryotsu use. Besides, there is a strange Ryotsu. Is he fighting the enemy?